For now, the Warriors are keeping Steph Curry off the floor because they must have seen this.
Don't you dare step on an NBA basketball court this season. I don't want to see him. I don't want to see him.
I'm just kidding. At least I'm pretty sure the Warriors aren't light years ahead because they watch First Take every day. Instead, there is an actual reason that Golden State planned on bringing Steph back in the first place, and it's a really important reason too. Steph hasn't played since 4 games into the season when Aaron Baines fell on his left hand and severely broke it. Since then, the Warriors have earned the NBA's worst record. Obviously, the 2-time MVP wasn't coming back to make the playoffs or anything. Some people say he shouldn't come back at all. Some think the risk is not worth the reward. Well, I see it the same way that the Warriors see it, and that's how important it is to get Steph back on the floor. He could return Thursday against the Raptors or a bit after that. Either way, the man is not and should not be ruled out for the rest of this season. In this video, we're going to break down the pros and cons of bringing Steph back to basically a G League team and why I think they absolutely need him back on the court right now. Hey guys, it's Casey Kiernan, host of the AM Hoops YouTube channel. Also check out the AM Hoops podcast wherever you listen to podcasts. Hit subscribe if you don't already to the YouTube, coming out with 5 quality videos Monday through Friday, dropping at 6 Eastern. Also say what's up on Twitter at Casey Kiernan or over on IG at AM Hoops. The initial date for Steph Curry's return was March 1st. Alarm bells went off in Dub Nation when it was announced that Steph would not return on that date. Now, the team was quick to come out and say, hey, that was Steph's date for return. We never said he'd be back on March 1st. Okay, that's fair. I mean, this is a medical staff that's being extra cautious. They're still in damage control from letting Kevin Durant play Game 5 of last year's finals. And we all know what happened from there. So Steph freaked everybody out when he said this in late February.
Broken hands are all different types, and this was a serious one that had a lot of nuances to it. With the 2 surgeries and the nerve damage and stuff that I'm still dealing with. So it's, again, everything was new. If it was an ankle thing, I'd tell you exactly what was happening. I'm getting used to what a new normal is. It definitely feels different than the right, but you try to get to a point where when you're actually playing basketball, you don't think about it.
Okay, nothing about that sounded good. Nerve damage? A new normal? But hold up, Steve Kerr came out pretty quickly and he was like, oh, nerve damage. That's just a little numbness. It's not even that big of a deal. He said, quote, zero concern in terms of re-injuring anything. It's just a feel thing for Steph. Nerve damage, that term sounds terrible. But I think all it really refers to is that area feels kind of numb to him. Steph has to get used to a different feeling in his hand. Nothing to see here. So Steve Kerr was saying that it's Steph's conditioning and not his little nerve damage that's the issue here. They want to get him up to speed. Literally all he had was a scrimmage recently against Klay Thompson's friends off the street. No joke. So it makes sense that the Warriors want Steph to play maybe in a G League game with Santa Cruz before an NBA game. But don't try to pretend that nerve damage isn't that bad. Steph even called it his new normal. And I know some of you are saying he's right-handed. It can't be that big of a deal. This is the only unanimous MVP you're talking about. If you'll excuse this kind of crappy looking game video, look at how skilled Steph is with his left hand. It's amazing when you really think about it. I mean, he's probably as good or better with his left than some players are in the NBA with their natural hand. He literally could just play left-handed if he wanted. He is that special. The good news is we've seen video of Steph working out before games this year with that left hand, and he looks pretty much like the old Steph. But we all know NBA games are much different than warm-ups, practices, or even a G League scrimmage, and that is why they need Steph back on the court as soon as possible. Steph needs to get used to this new normal, as he calls it, quick. Their championship window is not as wide open as you may think. In fact, it could be closed. The NBA has changed dramatically since last year's NBA Finals when we last saw a full-strength Warriors. In fact, Golden State has changed a lot since then too. I mean, just think about the East. Giannis has matured. Is he ready to take down the Warriors in the finals? Quite possibly. The Celtics are on their way to maturing. Could Jason Tatum be among the NBA's elite? Yes. What about the West? The Lakers and Clippers are superpowers on very short time frames. LeBron has little time to win that 4th ring, and the Kawhi-Paul George experiment is only guaranteed through next season. Other teams could be a threat to the Warriors now too. The Nets obviously will be ready to go next season. We know who they have on their team. All that, and I didn't even mention the Mavericks, Sixers, Raptors, and Heat as a threat to the Golden State Warriors. If the Warriors think they can just take it easy bringing their guys back because they're the Dubs, think again. A full-strength Warriors could take more L's than since before Steve Kerr got there in this new NBA. It takes some guys a long time to look like themselves after a major injury. And make no mistake, just because this is a hand doesn't make it a minor injury. Steph said it himself, we just heard him, multiple surgeries and nerve damage. Paul George injured himself with USA Basketball. It was about 15 months until we saw PG look like himself again. Gordon Hayward, a similar injury. He's just now showing flashes of what he used to be. Victor Oladipo had almost a season-long injury, and fans in Indy know to keep their expectations low the rest of the season. These guys with major injuries need a lot of time. If Steph returns for the Raptors game, for example, he'll have 21 NBA games to get used to this new normal. That is a huge and valuable head start. Paul George got in 6 games of the 2014-15 season, and he said it helped a lot that summer. Steph needs to get back on the court because the Warriors can't afford next year to be like a gap year or a getting used to it year in this new NBA. If their championship window is open again, it is closing fast. Then there's the chemistry with Andrew Wiggins that has to get worked out. Look, I know Klay Thompson isn't there, and that does matter, but working with Steph Curry is the single biggest hurdle to getting that offense down. In the 2015-16 season, Steph was the ball handler in the pick and roll 526 times in the regular season. That went down to 380 with Kevin Durant on the team. That tells us Steve Kerr runs his offense primarily through Steph without a player of the caliber of KD on the court. Kerr had high praise for Andrew Wiggins too. He said, quote, "I'm not sure we've had a player who has picked up the offense quicker, but the offense will run through Steph when he's back, so the offense Wiggins has picked up will totally change." And finally, there's the whole #1 pick thing that people seem so concerned about. Look, the Warriors aren't stupid. Of course they're not going to play Steph 35 minutes a game trying to get wins down the stretch. Wins for them at this point will be small victories inside of games, like executing plays correctly or being on the same page defensively. They know not to spoil all the pain of this year by winning meaningless games. Besides, the NBA took steps to fix the draft lottery. It's just not as valuable to have the worst record anymore. Now the worst 3 records have an equal 14% chance at the #1 overall pick. Last year, the Pelicans were tied for the 6th worst record in the league, and they got Zion. My point is, you never know with this stuff. Winning or losing a couple extra games down the stretch guarantees nothing. So don't tell me you're worried about that. Just to illustrate how much of a crapshoot the draft is and getting the #1 overall pick, the worst record has a 14% chance of the 1st overall pick, 13.4% at the 2nd overall, 12.7% of the 3rd overall, 12% of the 4th overall, and a 47.9% of getting the 5th overall pick. Bottom line is, top 4 isn't all that different. And at that point, you're tied with 2 other teams for these percentages. Winning a few extra games does not matter. Now, the good thing in all this, if you're a Warriors fan, is the team gets it. They know how important getting Steph a head start to conditioning and building chemistry is. They say that Steph, quote, remains on schedule for a return to play at some point in March. Some people say it will be Thursday against the Raptors. Now, one argument I heard for Sunday against the Wizards was basically DC is like a G League team defensively. If Steph waits till Thursday, it'll be a finals rematch against Toronto on national TV. More pressure. And that is ridiculous. There is no way that a 2-time MVP and 3-time champion like Steph Curry is nervous for any regular season game. They do not need to worry about that. What the Warriors should worry about is getting Steph Curry back on an NBA court this year as soon as they can, because they have a lot to work through and a very short amount of time to do it in this new NBA. Support AM Hoops and click subscribe. Don't miss a daily NBA video.